Hey, spiritual seekers, you have found it. This is Stripped Down Spirituality, episode 4, and I am so glad you're here. This is a podcast where I do my best to answer your questions about spirituality, life, and whatever comes up. I am Reverend Lezli Goodwin. I'm a minister at Centers for Spiritual Living, which is a New Thought denomination. I'm centered at New Vision Center for Spiritual Living in Phoenix, Arizona, as the associate minister there. So, what have I been up to? I have been busily working away. This is the last, I think, 10 days until the global themes for 2027 are due, and I'm writing 2 of those months. So I'm putting the final details on those talk prompts and the way we put together the month for all those resources. And so that has been holding the bulk of my attention. And I've been prepping my upcoming summer class, which is a relatively new Centers for Spiritual Living accredited class called Ancient Wisdom and the Science of Mind. I'll be teaching that this summer, all online, so absolutely anyone is welcome to join in. I'll give you the dates and some more information at the end of the show when I let you know what is up. And other than that, I've been hanging out with my dogs. I have two dogs. I have a Mastiff Bulldog mix named Apollo and a Pity mix that's mostly Staffy Terrier. And so those 2 keep me busy. There's a lot of throwing the ball, chasing the ball, a lot of supervising wrestling matches, but they are my sweet babies. So that's enough chit chat out of me. Let's look at our questions this week. Oh, just a heads up. I had this intention to always do 5 questions, and what I'm realizing is I like to talk, and that is not new news to anyone that knows me at all. And so I'm going to keep an eye on the clock, and when we are in the questions around the 30-minute mark, I'm going to wind it up because nobody needs to be listening to me talk quite that much. So let's see how far we get, shall we? So this is where my questions are. So the first question I have here is, if I was only ever going to read one book from Ernest Holmes, what book would you recommend? Nice. So in case you don't know, Ernest Holmes is the founder of the philosophy of science of mind, and that teaching is about 100 years old. This coming year, I think we're right on the line. So he wrote quite a lot of books, and often when people are new to the teaching, or they are talking to people who are new to the teaching, they want to know, like, what is the one book you would recommend? And because I do not follow directions, I'm going to answer it a little bit differently. I will tell you the book I would not recommend, and that is the book The Science of Mind. It is let's see, where is mine? It's over here. It's a big book. It's big. I'm making notes for an upcoming book I'm writing. It's big. It's written in a really academic voice, and it's one of the harder books to understand that he wrote. So I would not recommend that one first, even though it is called The Science of Mind and we call the teaching The Science of Mind. Instead, I would ask, what is it that you are most wanting to accomplish? Because I have a different answer for different intentions. If your intention is to feel the presence and the love and the whole and complete acceptance of an infinite God, then my answer would be this thing called you. It is a poetic, lyrical, beautiful book full of affirmations, and very often people will read those affirmations and put them in the first person, and it just really puts one in touch with that feeling of an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving, completely non-judgmental God that has created us in its likeness and image so that we too are creative and divine. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorites. If you are wanting to understand the full breadth of the teaching of science of mind and how to walk it out, then I would recommend the book A New Design for Living. It is, to my understanding, the last book he published. So it does the same work as the Science of Mind text largely, but in a much more concise and easy to understand way. Plus, we have the advantage of his whole arc of ministry and philosophy and development over decades and decades, where Science of Mind was written really early in his career. A New Design for Living, we get the allness of what he learned along the path and how he deepened into the teachings that he found elsewhere in New Thought and other faith traditions, and then how he learned to walk them out with people in a way that was meaningful and anchored. So those would be my recommendations. I will put those in the show notes, which are underneath the video you're watching right now. Question 2. Many people hear thoughts create reality and think it's just wishful thinking. How do you clarify what that really means? This is not a short question. We say thoughts are things, or thoughts create reality, or we are the creators of our own reality. Those are things that get said a lot in various branches of New Thought and spirituality. And to my understanding, with the full recognition that like every minister, every philosopher, every practitioner of any of these faith traditions are going to have their own answer, right? So this is my answer. To dig into this, first we have to talk about what is reality. What is a person's reality? So I think most of the time people hear the word reality and they think of a concrete, capital T, truth of what happened. Inarguable, that it is what is, and that's the end of the story. And I think that there may be one of those, sure, but I do not believe that people have access to it. What we have access to is what I call little r reality. Hydrate in the desert. We have little r reality, which is what we perceive and the meaning we make of it. So as we're going through our day, we see things, we hear things, we think things, and we create a narrative out of those things. We make it mean something. So I might be in a parking lot at the grocery store and see a woman stop a few feet short of me, roll her eyes, and forcefully kind of force her shopping cart into the trolley guide where you're supposed to put your shopping carts, and stalk away towards her car. And I might think, that woman really, really does not like returning her cart, or had a very bad shopping experience. She should stop and get herself a little sweet treat on the way home and take, several nice deep breaths. That she's having a bad day. Somebody else might have the exact same thing happen and look at them and think, that woman hates me. What did I do? Did I cut her off in the shopping line? Did I buy the last container of something she wanted? She's really upset with me because she looked at me and then had this response. And here's the deal. It doesn't really matter what that woman was experiencing, because each of those two people, the one who thinks it is about that person just having a bad day and the person who thinks it's about them being mad at them, because they believe that is the reality they experience. That is the lowercase r reality they experience. And they experience it as fully as if it was entirely true, no matter what the original person was actually thinking. So how we create meaning around our life absolutely dramatically impacts our reality. Now, it doesn't impact, or it doesn't control things about our reality, but it does impact it. And so stay with me here. So one of the things we teach in New Thought is to consciously learn to use our thoughts to impact our reality. And sometimes we will run into phrases like, like in the what we believe statements, which is also called the Declaration of Principles, we believe in the control of conditions through the one mind. And I push back against the word control. I push back against it regularly. I prefer the word impact or influence or affect. We affect our reality. We affect what's happening in our world by affecting how we react to it, by impacting what we believe about it, how we feel about it, because that becomes our reality. So, okay, a favorite story of mine, long time ago. I was out at a bar with a number of my girlfriends, and all of us were single and in theory dating, but not really, because we were all frustrated. And one of my friends was like, there are no men left. There's nobody to date me. I just give up. No man wants to take me out. And like 4 men in the immediate vicinity were like, I would go out with you. Do you want to go out? And I remember becoming aware that when we have the mindset that something is not possible, we can be surrounded by the possibilities of it and we don't even see it, because we're just tuned into a different frequency. We're tuned into the no, and so we only get the no. When we open up to the yeses are everywhere. It's possible all the time. And so our thoughts create reality in that we can use our thoughts to open us up to fresh possibilities. We can shift the way we interpret the world around us. We can be kinder to ourselves and, in extension, others by the thoughts we think. If we think we cannot graduate from graduate school, we probably won't even start graduate school. In which case, we'll never know if we could have done it or not. But if we keep placing the thought, I know I can do this, I know I am smart, I know that there's a path through this for me, and we begin and we move through it, there's a very good chance that we are in fact able to complete whatever goal we set out for ourselves. But we have to be willing to see everything in our life differently. We have to be willing to lay down the preconceived notions that we've built up over a lifetime about who we are and what is possible and how the world works, in order to shift into this place where our thoughts can affect our reality in meaningful ways. So it's not a magic trick. It's not hokum. Some people think that it is, and usually what they think we're meaning is, my thought is a magic spell and I'm going to make something happen. Instead, I'm going to use my thoughts to connect with the allness that is, to shift myself so I'm in alignment with that good, and then trust God, Spirit, the universe, the way the world works, to align everything else with me. And the great thing is, there are infinite ways things can happen. There are infinite ways things can be paid for. There are infinite ways we can get the resources we need. And in New Thought, we believe that we live in an infinite universe, an infinitely abundant and powerful universe. And so we open up to the possibility, we allow ourselves to see that it's possible, and our thought impacts our reality by changing it in the direction of what we would like to experience. That's how I would explain it. There will be some who would say that I am watering down the teaching with that, but I think I'm speaking about it from a believable, understandable, and usable perspective. So I hope that helps. Question number 3. When I lived in Arizona, you were my model of a great practitioner. Oh, thank you. That's very kind. Thank you for saying that. I want to learn all about your podcast. This was clearly a question put in before we started doing the episode, so I hope that you are watching. I believe it will help many, many people. Again, that's very kind. Congrats. And here's my query. As I'm aging, my mind goes toward trying to imagine my afterlife experience. What would you tell us about what to expect? Good question. I can tell you what Ernest Holmes said, the founder of Science of Mind, which is the New Thought teaching I've studied the most and that I practice in. And it is the one area in the big book, the Science of Mind book, where he writes in the first person, because he's writing about his personal beliefs. Because as he says, basically, he doesn't remember being dead, so he can't tell you in first person, but he can tell you what he believes. And what he believed is that the human soul is immortal, forever and ever expanding in a spiral of upward expansion and expression. And he wasn't super clear about how he thought that was going to look, other than he really believed that we would hold on to our personalities and our memory and our connection to who we were, because he didn't see the point of coming back again or doing something again if we weren't building on what we'd already done. He didn't particularly believe in reincarnation in this time space, because we've already done this, that we would be going on to something more, something new, to experience something different. And he wasn't particularly attached to people agreeing with him at all. He basically thought we should figure it out for ourselves. And since Science of Mind was originally created not as its own faith tradition, but as a philosophical overlay, it was designed to take whatever faith tradition you had and help you be a more powerful practitioner of that faith tradition. So if you were a Jew, it was to make you a better Jew. If you were a Christian, to make you a better Christian, etc. So I don't think he was super attached to what people thought about it. As somebody who's married to a Buddhist who believes in infinite reincarnation, I've sure had a lot of opportunity to think about this. And I grew up Catholic, and I have a lot of Catholics and Christians in my family who have their own perspective on this. And then there's like the cultural, general heaven-hell concept that kind of floats around in the air in North America, which is where I live. And there is a concept that sparks my interest, if you will. And it is the idea that when we pass into the next immortal space, so I will say, I do believe that the human soul is immortal. It fits in my heart. That is what makes sense to me. I have no attachment to anybody agreeing with me. That's just what makes sense to me. When we each pass on to the next great whatever, that we experience what we think we're going to experience. So the Christians who think they're going to a heaven with roads paved with gold and angels with harps and halos, or whatever it is that they think, and their beloveds are all there. I think that in this philosophy, in this theory, that's what they get. And the people who believe that they've been really evil and deserve to be punished end up in a hell realm of sorts. And the people who think there isn't anything go to the great rest, the great quietude. There's something about that appeals to me. There's another theory that interests me, that is just when we go on to the next thing, we're entered into like the great pool of oneness, where we don't hold on to our memories or our attachment to what was, and instead we kind of melt into the allness that is in that higher state of consciousness. And maybe we get reincarnated from there, or maybe we stay in the infinite oneness. But there's something about that makes some sense to me too. People will ask, are you absolutely 100% sure that there is an afterlife? And I am not afraid to admit that no, I am not. I know what makes sense to me, and I know what feels good in my heart, and I'm not 100% sure, because like Ernest, I don't remember being not alive. I can't tell you exactly what happens, because I don't have memory of it, but it doesn't bother me. And this is why. Either I'm right and something cool happens and I'm gonna get to see what that is, and I'm deeply curious. I'm gonna want to see what that is, right? Or I'm wrong and there isn't anything, and when you pass away you're just gone. And that isn't frightening to me, because I'll never know if there isn't anything beyond this life. I will close my eyes in the anticipation of something wonderful, and that's it. There's nothing to be afraid of because I'm not going to experience anything bad. What I absolutely do not believe in is a hell. I cannot believe in a divinity that created us all to punish us. That makes no sense to me. As a mother, there's just absolutely no way I can sign on to that. If there is a God that is like that, no thank you. I'm not interested. So I am hopeful that there's something wonderful on the other side of this. I am not fearful that there's something scary. And I hope that that gives you something to chew on. I love that question. I'm really glad you asked it. Okay, question number 4. How can I explain New Thought spirituality to parents in their late 70s who only know organized religion? Friend, you are not the first person to ask this question, and you are not the first person to be walking through this, where you're coming from a family that has always participated in a more traditional form of organized religion. I love when we say that science of mind isn't organized, because seriously, none of us are very organized. And, you know, as a 100-year-old teaching now, we probably are kind of becoming more of an organized religion, but hopefully not in the dogmatic way. How would I explain New Thought spirituality to those folks? Well, I have the good fortune of having gotten to do that. My own parents are in their 70s, and my grandmother was in her 90s when we were having these conversations. And so a lot of the time what I'll do is ask them what it is that they value about their religion. What do they really love about it? And nobody ever answers, I love the dogma and rules. Like, that is just not, I'm sure there are those people. I do not know them. They will talk to me about the peace of faith and knowing that someone is looking out for them. They will talk to me about the moral teachings and how it helps keep them in alignment with who they want to be. They will talk about a personal relationship with God or Jesus, or a sense of love of the universe. And that gives me a lot to work with there, because we have all of those in science of mind as well. That though we're taken out of the traditional structure of specifically Christianity, it's usually Christians that are asking this question, that are worried that we have somehow accidentally joined a cult because it doesn't look like what they would recognize. And I say, you know, in this teaching, some things look different. Really, the only rule is that our behavior is life-affirming. But if you break that down, that covers most of the 10 Commandments. It is not life-affirming to lie or steal or cheat or harm another person. It covers most of the basic morals. If you're living in a way that is life-affirming, that's guiding your moral expression, your ethical expression. And if you need more specific rules to guide your moral expression, I would worry that your moral expression isn't being particularly well exercised. If a rule is the only reason you wouldn't harm someone, that's an issue of concern for me. In science of mind, we don't set up that rigid framework because we feel like our job isn't to tell you what to think or what to believe. It's to teach you how to think critically and how give you a conscious framework for the universe, and then let you figure out what works for you within that framework. So we offer spiritual practices so that we can get quiet and develop that relationship with the divine inside of our own individual selves in our own unique way, without a need for any intercessory. There doesn't need to be a priest or a minister or someone telling me how to have my relationship with the divine. Just the loving reminders to quiet down enough to build that inner relationship. We don't have the dogmatic rules because we trust that the people that are practicing this tradition or this philosophy are operating in their own sense of wisdom as to what makes sense to each one of us and how to walk out this teaching ourselves. But there's still that piece of having a divinity that is supporting and loving us. We say the entire universe is conspiring for our good. Not just because we are well behaved, but because it created us. And that's the only reason that's needed, that we are of that infinite good. And therefore the whole universe is watching out for us, is taking our thoughts from the earlier question and creating the possibilities for us to walk out those realities. Usually when people start hearing, okay, so moral framework, yes, we have that. Relationship with the divine, yes, we have that. Peace of mind and heart, yes, we have that. They start calming down. They may never entirely understand, because their worldview is built around the structure they've chosen or was chosen for them by their parents. If you're part of a family that's been the same faith tradition for many, many generations, and it's working for them, it makes sense for them, or they would have changed to something else, right? And so I think the pardon me for that noise. I think the biggest thing is to help them remember that just as their faith tradition works for them, it's important that you have a faith tradition that works for you. And this is one that is working for you right now. Okay, so my friends who are asking this question, specifically who have families that are some form of Christian, Catholic, Protestant, Methodist, Lutheran, any of those, I often will point out in the Science of Mind text, the big fat book, that about a third of the text is Bible interpretation specifically centered around Jesus and the parables. And that often calms people down to recognize that while we don't teach that Jesus is the one and only begotten Son of God, because we teach that everyone is a child of the divine, we do look to Jesus as the great example, or at least as one of the great examples. Ernest called him the great example, but left that doorway open for each of us to find the avatars of the teachers of the past that work for us personally, whether it's Buddha or Krishna or Yogananda. There are infinite out there that have guided us towards wisdom. When they see that Jesus is very clearly and widely represented, it often causes a breath of relief in folks who are having a hard time understanding why we would take a trip in this non-traditional direction. And the last thing that I often leave them with is, are you noticing that your person that you love is changing? How do you notice that they're changing? And they do get nervous when we change, because change is scary. But when they recognize that we're changing to be more calm, more loving, more responsible, more open to opportunity, more peace-filled, then it can help them see what the teaching is doing for us that makes it worthwhile for us to continue to explore a teaching, whether they understand it or not. At the end of the day, though, as adults, young adults, even older children, really only we can forge our path forward and our relationship with the divine. And sometimes there are going to be people who absolutely don't understand, whose worldview is wrapped around the idea that what they believe is the only way and everything else is wrong or bad or going to hell. And so sometimes there's just making peace with not being understood by that person and recognizing that we don't have to buy into that definition of ourselves or of our life or of our choices. And conveniently, a relationship with the divine on the inside of our own beingness is really helpful at coming to peace with that experience, if it does happen. I hope that it goes smoothly for you, friend. Okay, I'm watching the clock. Look, we're almost at 30 minutes. So I'm going to have that question be our final question for this time and do my last bits of check-in. So, what am I reading? I am reading Becoming Kin, an Indigenous call to unforgetting the past and reimagining our future by Patty Krawick. I just started this one. It's my second time through it, and I am, as you could guess, using it in the global themes that I'm working on helping to write for next year for Centers for Spiritual Living. So that's exciting and cool. I finished up my When No Thing Works last week, my second read through of that, and ooh, that's a good one. That's a good book. So good stuff. I always have two going, so you know I have a cheesy fiction book going, and I am on book 3 of the Myrtlewood mystery series. Boy, you'd think by now I could say that word, by Iris Beaglehole. They are fun and silly. They take place in England. There's a magic house. I love anything with a magic house. Upcoming, we've got that class that I mentioned at Ancient Wisdom and Science of Mind. That class starts July 21st. It runs from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time. It's all online. There are no prerequisites. It fits into the same category slot as Roots of Science of Mind. So if you are someone who is considering taking advanced consciousness studies in the fall or working towards qualifying for that, I would really recommend that you hop in on Ancient Wisdom and Science of Mind. Because it's online, anyone, anywhere is welcome to join. If that time doesn't work for you and it makes you nervous, check the CSL education portal at csl.org. A number of us are teaching it sometime in the summer or fall, in all different time zones, all different centers. So there are lots of opportunities for you to take it. And in the show notes, I have the link to find out more and to register if you would like to play along. In between now and then, Reverend Karen Einhaus is teaching the brand new Foundations of Science of Mind and Spirit class. And that's going to be a hybrid class. You can find that information on newvisioncsl.org under calendar. That is a great introduction class. It's also a great sharpening the saw class. Relatively short, good stuff. So some fun things for you to consider trying. And a couple people have asked questions about working with me personally, one-on-one as a practitioner or a spiritual mentor. You can find out more about that on my website, LezliGoodwin.org. No, that's a lie, LezliGoodwin.com, and that's Lezli Goodwin.com. Including rates and what that looks like, and all that stuff is right there. And if you want more information than is on the website, you can shoot me an email at LezliGoodwin@gmail.com, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you about whether that would be a fit. If you found this interesting, if you're enjoying this podcast, consider a few things. Consider clicking like on this video. It sure helps push it out to a greater number of people so that people who are interested might be able to find it. You can click subscribe if you would like to get immediate access to videos as soon as I post them. They'll pop up on your feed. And you can click the little bell. That's a notification bell, and that will give you, if you have empowered notification in YouTube, it'll give you a little note when a video from me pops up, if that is something that you would like. You can also enter a comment. I would love to hear what you think. What do you think happens when we pass on? How would you explain this teaching to someone who is unfamiliar with it and maybe a little bit unsure about what is this crazy thing that we're learning? I would love to hear what you think about all of that. I know that some of our listeners are practitioners or ministers in this teaching, and I am sure that there are opinions out there. Any feedback you have, I would love to have it in the comments. If you have a question you'd like to ask, the link to submit questions are in the show notes here. I've had a couple people say, well, I wanted to ask you about fill in the blank thing, but I didn't know if it was appropriate. Here's what I say. I say, put the question in. If I don't feel comfortable answering it, I won't. But there's nothing to be harmed by putting the question in. I will not get offended, I promise. And I'm kind of an open book, so odds are I would be willing to answer it. And that's the pod for today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day and your week, and I will see you again next week on Friday. Thanks so much.